Good morning to everyone, and good afternoon if you're further east. Good evening if you're that much further east. I'm recording this because unfortunately I couldn't be with all of you in Dublin or even live. I wanted to share some thoughts on accelerating digital transformation. What do we mean by that? And what we might be why we might do it and what we might do to accelerate it. So what is digital transformation? Hopefully you get that by the end, not just a tech slogan. I think the why, I think, is very, very important in making the case of why we accelerate and also using this why to actually drive the change, and then a little bit on the how fundamentals that we at Buro Happold have been pursuing. So this is in the context of technology, where what we can all agree, and Justin Trudeau said it in a few words, the pace of change has never been as fast as it is today. But yet it will never be as slow as this again. So we are really seeing an acceleration of technology adoption. And as a digital agitator, I am here to agitate further on making that acceleration real. And I do this from a position of speaking today as the CTO of Buro Happold. We're a global, worldwide firm, but I also take other positions in leadership and trying to accelerate digital transformation and catalyze those. I'm working currently with NEOM and the Construction Innovation Hub in the UK, and I've worked with a number of firms, and I also love to get involved with the innovators that we now term Contech and PropTech. So what we can agree on is technology absorption, and technology adoption is getting faster. I think technology is exponential, but also society is changing faster. And we've seen a really significant COVID-19 effect. So we've really seen what's possible when you must do it, when there is no alternative. And that context, I think, is what we should be reflecting on when we're trying to think the end goal really is to have an impact. And we must repeat it, and because it's not repeated often enough for my liking anyway, that when a technology takes hold, it's society that changes. This is Renaissance moment, Gutenberg moment. And Sylvia Serres makes the point that we are living through 12 of those Gutenberg moments in one generation. So really we have a lot of technology adoption that can have a lot of impact. And that is in itself very exciting, possibly a little bit scary, but mostly exciting. And one such journey that we've already made is the one with BIM. And I've used this slide many times. I don't pretend to update it because I could see that certainly in our business by 2013, BIM was business as usual in the US, and by 2016, we made it totally business as usual in the UK. And we're really on a point where the technology is being absorbed, the technology has become business as usual. There is no ifs, there's no buts, and we should be in a productivity plateau where we are where it's become business as usual and we're continuously improving, and it's not the talk, but we are walking the walk. And that word productivity plateau, or plateau of productivity, is quite interesting because it really talks about business, and it also talks about a plateau. More of that in a second. But actually, this is a piece of research that is being presented in another module by Gary from Kinship. And this is a piece of research we did as the AEC reality check to try to find out where is everyone. And when we found that, BAU, all projects, that's 30% of the firms, we've seen, a good a good number of firms, another 28%, saying that more than 75% of projects that are amenable to BIM are being delivered in BIM, but that's still only 50% adoption. And it's really interesting of why adoption is not taking hold and is not happening faster. Because let's remember, BIM is something that we started talking about in the 1990s. It becomes a desktop application in the mid-2000s. It's not new. And yet we are barely at 50% adoption. And for me, the fact that the highest reason for not doing it was that the client wasn't asking for it. It's really telling me that we are not yet in a BAU plateau of productivity, in the sense of people don't see why they would do it for themselves. I mean, it's like, I've given you a car, but no, the client's not asking for a car, so I'm going to use a horse-drawn carriage. I mean, it's incredible. We've not figured out how to make it work. So what might be different, or why would this matter? And I think there are two central pillars here. One which is sustainability, and the other one that is affordability and social equity. Let me explain. We need the built environment. We need to build stuff. The population keeps growing. We even in the Western world have affordability issues around providing good homes and good houses to everyone. We've got affordability issues around making them perform in terms of energetic performance. For example, right now we're in the middle of an energy crisis. So social equity, even in the Western world, is not achieved. So we really need to democratize the built environment. And with the technologies we have, we don't seem to be able to. And then if that wasn't bad enough, 40% of the carbon emission of society comes from the built environment. So we're facing with this climate emergency. We can see climatic change really affecting the weather. And this climatic change, we are only going to accelerate it if we continue designing the way we do. And so I think there's a good recognition by everyone that those two themes are central. It's not about technology adoption. It is about, can we do better, and might we use technology to do better? With a few friends, we put a video together. It was enabled by Autodesk. I want to mention that. I'll just run the video because I think it captures a lot of idea, and I make it quite central to most presentation I make at the moment, to say it's not an individual idea. It's everyone's responsibility.
What happens today is we design something, we go and build it, and then we switch it on. And when we switch it on, we find that it uses more energy and its carbon emission impact is quite high.
Every material that we use in the world stays in the world. It doesn't ever leave. We have to be appreciative about what we expect that next part of the journey for that material to be.
There's very much a movement right now with technology to make construction a predictable, managed process.
The built environment is a complex system of systems. It is the goal to create systemic change in this system of systems, with all stakeholders acting in sync.
We jointly need to come together in each and every project, set the ambition, work together towards a common goal.
This is our world. This is our opportunity.
Climate change doesn't know boundaries, does it?
So it's short, sweet. There is a longer version, but the point is, this is our industry arguing for adoption of technology, to say we have a problem. Let's all work together to solve it. And when I see the figure that only 30% of firms are saying it's business as usual, and even that sample might not have been representative. We have a long way to go. So we need to accelerate. We really need to get things in order. And I think everybody that's listening here, or the majority, must say, well, that's what I've been trying to do. Well, you know, how is this helping? And I think that's really fair, but maybe this climate emergency, you know, don't waste a good crisis, because I think there are many aspects of getting our work done and making the change that we want to achieve. You know, it's becoming essential from a societal point of view. We have so many cities to build, and it's becoming essential from a climate point of view. So this is going to be connecting with, you know, higher order motivation and change drivers. And so maybe this crisis and these crises with double S is or are something that we should incorporate in our narrative. And so I'm saying, you know, shift gear, have a think in terms of, you know, are we culprits of talking too much about technology, and can we really think about what does it look like once we've created a change? And this is this digital transformation concept and this digital transformation thinking. I think we've all seen it. You know, email is digitized paper. Slack is a completely different way to communicate. A CD is digitized music, and yet once the industry is transformed and is back to the fans talking with the artist, this goes Spotify. Once it's about sharing, it's not just about putting it onto a piece of technology because a USB, but it is, you know, a cloud platform. Once it's about navigation and getting to the destination, then we have communities helping each other. Once we sharing movies is not just about the physical DVD, it's about the recommendation and the streaming, etc. We've all lived it, we all seen it, but we need now to project that into our world. And there is a work example, and I think this example, it's really interesting to think about, you know, is the language about technology or is the language about change and impact? And in this framework, which was created by MIT, you can see that there are two axes, and one axis, the vertical axis, talks about technology and digitization, the language of the geeks, and the horizontal axis talks about change and about innovation and about transformation of the business. And so you get 4 quadrants, and it was quite interesting is that, you know, pure digitization, we know, does not achieve an outcome or anything novel. Incubating novel ideas is useful to understand the art of the possible, but it's only once we've really pushed the change horizontally that we transform. And you know, the worked example is the one of music, of course, because Sony digitized music with the CD, but it's, it didn't achieve much, really. The CD was just a change of plastic. You know, we went from vinyl to polycarbonate, and we went from turntables to CD players, but the structure of the industry didn't change, and they, you know, sold a lot of turntables for sure. Napster innovated, clearly, you know, the shift to the MP3 allowed streaming, but that didn't change the industry. It was, you know, digital geeks talking to digital geeks on the internet, and that was fine. It showed what was possible. But it's really those that looked at it and says, right, you know, let's change the medium. So Rio invented the MP3 player, or certainly popularized it. iTunes and the iPod make it really relevant. They weren't selling an MP3 player anymore. They were selling 1,000 songs in your pocket, and started talking about a different way of, you know, rip, mix, burn. You know, the industry was in really not happy, the idea that you were going to take a CD, rip it onto your iPod, and then, you know, we went towards iTunes and the iTunes Store, and then eventually Apple transformed the whole industry. And so it is that journey that we need to take with our industry. BIM is just the MP3 player of our industry. But what is our iPod moment? What are the iPod things we need to do? And you know, if your bosses are asking, or if the shareholders are asking, or if the CFO is asking, you know, point out to them that pure digitization, you know, is a bad business outcome. These percentages are the impact on you know, global scorecards, not just profitability outcomes, but you know, it's not just share value outcomes. But you can see that those that just digitize lose out. Those that can transform are the clear winner. You know, Napster didn't win, but Spotify did. Apple did. So that's the language. If I go back to, you know, just doing BIM, that doesn't speak to a CFO, and that doesn't have an impact on sustainability. It's really once we put it to work, and that's the language that I think our community needs to adopt. And you know, when I look at how I present BIM typically at Buro Happold, you know, we talk about the use cases of the models in the value chain of our industry, in the life cycle of assets, you know, designing them, building them, operating them. And then very quickly, we say, and this only works if, and it's quite right, this only works if we de-silo our data, we get collaborative model-based exchange going, we've written standards, PAS 1192 becomes ISO 19650. You know, it all starts sounding very much like MP3s to me, you know, MP3s and encoding standards and which type of floppy disk did you have? Which type of hard drive did you have? Did you have a SCSI interface, or did you do it on a USB plug? Or, I mean, you know, it was all sorts of geek talk. And so our focus has been on information management, which is the enabler of it, but the business focus is missing. And, you know, that business focus is not coming. We've had the report from the commission by Centre for Digital Build Britain that says, you know, for every pound you invest in information management, you have an opportunity to make 5 back. But those 5 backs, they're not going to be got back into the information management layer. They're only going to be back from those people that are in the industry, that are designing, that are doing cost management, that are doing logistics management, those that are in the business, making sure that those are the ones that use the technology, and we help them, we coach them. It's not us, it's not the information management community doing it, it's they doing it, enabled by the frameworks we've put in place. So what is it that specifically we are having to put in place? And I think, again, you know, the big metaphor, the big message, you know, software is eating the world. Wall Street Journal front page 2013, I think. So not new. Again, is having that mental throughout the business to realize that Amazon is a retailer. Amazon is not a tech company. When does Amazon talk to you about their bandwidth, their data taxonomies for retail? They don't. The impact comes through their customer centricity, but they are thinking like a software company, and we need to think like a software company. And so, for example, we need to think about what do we do with code, and you know, we're going continuously within Buro Happold. Continuously, we're going to all our offices and talking about, you know, what would you do with code? And essentially, you know, I think there's a rule of 3 here that comes very, very quickly. You know, if you're going to do it once, do it manually. If you're going to do it twice, you know, consider coding it and see how you get on. If you're going to do it 3 times, you know, do the code in a standard framework, share the code, make it shareable, document the code, and capture the code at the heart of the firm. So at the heart of the firm now, we have this software repository at the skill set of everyone. We are merging the ability to mobilize code with the ability to be an engineer. And be it architecture, construction, or engineering, what we're seeing is this merging of model-based information representation, which we call BIM, and the information exchange we call IM, and computational thinking, and bringing this together. Randy Dirge of the University of Illinois calls that a super user. Maybe he's just a user of the 21st century, because what you and I know today is that the way we get things done means that we use technology in our daily life. It's the most powerful computer that we have as an assistant. We call it a phone, maybe a smartphone, but it's incredibly powerful nowadays. And you wouldn't imagine stepping out of your house without having your phone in your hand and checking for the weather, checking for the traffic, checking for public transport, checking how long it was going to be there, booking your train. I mean, literally the list is endless. And we've kind of seamlessly developed that competence, and that's the competence that we need to equip our businesses at a really high pace, at a really fast pace. And I think that's the new battle for all the businesses. And so where are these skills? They are with those that are at today's conference and in today's conversation. How do we transmit those to others? It's not about us, it's about them. How we transmit them, that's really the key focus. And I was just mentioning how this looks like in an engineering firm, but this is a video, I think, from Mace, and you can see how they're deploying it in all their use cases across construction, be it understanding, planning, controlling. Everything is becoming augmented to technology, and so it's essential. You saw in the sustainability video, Matt Goff, their director of innovation, speaking to the fact that the technologies that we need to make this happen exist already. It's just about adoption and scaling. Here we've got the project control room, which is a project that just assembled a set of technologies and make them work together and got everybody involved. I think connecting that to some outcomes is possibly also very important to understand that with technology, we should be able to switch construction to industrial mindset. And I think that is something very, very important to highlight. It's a transition. It's going to take many, many years, but if there is an iPod moment in terms of construction and delivery rather than operation and designing for operation, designing for delivery, orchestrating delivery, and managing to gradually going towards an autonomous construction where it reacts and it's augmented, that is the big prize, because we know how much construction waste there is. We know how long it takes if we could get the asset quicker, but also if we are in a position where the process is controlled, then it can be optimized. And what we are seeing is adopting a product-centric view of the world, a space-centric view of the world. We are building spaces, we're building transportation systems, we're not building train sets or concrete. Being able to manage that into a product lifecycle management, so that we from the learning from the manufacturing and the assembly gets put back into the next projects and gets put back into the design. And then this focus of assemblies that come together rather than trades that work together, that is a very, very big shift, because essentially you are specifying how things come together at package level, but also at assembly level and at sub-assembly level. And if those are defined, then the risk disappears. And this is possible because of the digital tool chains that are coming up and that are being built on top of the information management layer that the BIM manager sets up in place. And you know, the most extreme view of this is something that I've been working on, and I just mentioned the platform construction systems, where you know the digital systems are platformized, so they're interoperable, they're composable, and the different parties can daisy chain their tools, but the parts become sub-assemblies that become assemblies that get brought to site and put together, and they are not standardized in the form of what is the output. It's standardized at the interfaces, so that through configuration and permutation we end up with an incredible variety of outcomes, but we do so in a predictable way because each part fits. And that's actually been embodied into government policy. And the reason why in the UK this is embedded in government policy is because that is aimed at sending the signal to the industry that we need it for societal outcome, we need it for net zero construction, we need it for net zero operation, but the only way we're going to get there is by taking a different approach. And the different approach that is put together is that this pushes off the information management and the BIM layer that we are managing in. So instead of talking about, you know, the internet, and if I take my analogy of music again, if we stop talking about MP3 and encoding standards and IP standards and different, you know, modem speed, but we talk about our industry and says, now that we have our iPods, now that we have our MP3 standards, what do we do with it, and how do we reimagine our industry so that it works better? And so that it works better, the message is clear from the UK government, at least, is in those set of technologies, it should be possible for a government department to buy a school by specifying it to be made out of parts that the supply chain has published as, these are the parts we can make. The designer, please try to assemble those parts following the rules of the platforms and deliver me a school. And that's a big breakthrough. It's only possible because we have the digital tool chain. But for me, this is the moment where actually we change and really justify what it is about. Because ultimately, what we've been doing is ordering CDs online. We've continued to use the technology to do the same process without really thinking about, but what did I want to do? I wanted to listen to an amazing piece, an amazing song that I want to discover, a new artist. And I'm doing that online now through Spotify in a completely new way. We need to build and argue for the Spotify of our industry. So to summarize, it is about technology adoption, yes. It is about making it BAU. The why is the sustainability and equity crisis that we have. And the how is business transformation. Let's stop talking about the standards. Let's stop talking about what we want to talk about, the technology, the BIM processes, the BIM execution plans. They're all fine. They're important. But actually, what matters to our audience is the business transformation and the business outcomes we deliver. I'll finish it there. Just pop up my at Twitter, reach out. Very happy to answer any further questions, clarification, and wish everyone a great debate.